Is Maria Stassi from the international spot of the region of Sicily. We collaborated with the Department for Productive Activities and all the other departments to organize this workshop and conferences which are broadcast and streaming, as you can see. So they are broadcast live, but most of all they are recorded. They are recorded because we like to use what has been the object of your discussions, of your presentation, in order to work on them at the end of Expo in November, to relaunch and make strategic what we have spoken about. All the topics in within Expo go from food sustainability, biodiversity, agriculture to green economy, sustainability. and they are intertwined in order to achieve better input. In this case, for the excellence of fruit and vegetable growing, we will also tell an experience which is between energy, sustainability, and fruit and vegetable growing. So the speakers will be able to tell you everything. I would like to thank Coca-Cola for being with us and all the other speakers. So have a fruitful workshop. Daniela Romano is going to moderate this session, this workshop. So we can start our workshop today. The first important thing to highlight is that the structure of this initiative is different from the traditional conferences. Also, the way we are seated around the table must help us to understand that we want to do something different. The topic is very important for the whole agriculture, Sicilian agriculture. Today we will focus on the sector of fruit and vegetable growing, which is a strategic sector, especially if we look at the GDP of this sector, of the whole agricultural Sicilian sector. Talking about fruit and vegetable growing means talking about a lot of things because there is a lot of biodiversity, but it is a biodiversity which combines with the health, nutraceutical aspects, with our gastronomy. So the fields are very rich. The choice we've made within this workshop is to present some case studies which the region funded and which have seen many companies as protagonists, and they are also the excellence of Sicily. So my task is to be the chairperson of this workshop. There are many participants taking part in this workshop, speaking different languages, but the most important thing at the end of this workshop is to have an exchange of opinion. This is why we have 10 speeches. We have 1 and 45 minutes, and for this reason, I would like to invite speakers to stick to their 10 minutes to present their topics, even because this must facilitate the debate, which is the main objective of this meeting. So I give the floor to Alberto Continella from the University of Catania, who's going to talk about innovation in the chain of prickly pear. Today I'm going to talk about innovations in the chain of prickly pear, which is a minor fruit, but it is quite important, especially for Sicily region. I introduce this prickly pear. The origin is Mexico, so in the Mexican flag we have the representation of the flag there where the eagle laid on the plant. The capital of Tenochtitlan was founded. The plant spread all over the world, in South, North America, in Europe, North Africa, South Africa, and this plant we have several species of the type Opuntia, and there are many species which are part of this type. The use of prickly pear, it is used by as a fruit. Only 100,000 hectares are cultivated, especially in Mexico, and there is the production of biomass, especially 1 million hectares cultivated in South America, Argentina, Brazil, but also in North African countries and South African countries, because this plant can be used for animal diet, but also for other uses as a biomass for different energy uses. Of course, Italy has its own economic importance. 100,000 tons are the production. So in Sicily we have four production areas: San Cono, Etna, Southwest Etna, Valle del Belice, and Roccabalumbo. We have two ODP, that is the prickly pear of Etna, and ficodindia di San Cono. Everything is realized thanks to the production of only three varieties: the yellow, the green, and the red varieties. So here we have to talk about biodiversity, and so we can see that the biodiversity of this fruit is huge. These are varieties coming from Mexico. We have different colors, different shapes, and so of course these leads to the fact that we have a high technology in Sicily. The Mexican researchers say that if they had the technology we have in Sicily with the biodiversity that they have in Mexico, probably they could realize more important aspects for the growing of this fruit. There are many nutraceutical properties in this product, which are due to the betalain, which are polyphenols, and just like anthocyanins, which are in red oranges, give the color to this fruit: yellow, red, orange. And they play different fundamental functions as for the prevention of diseases, because they are antioxidants, they are radical scavengers, and several studies are also finding important that they are useful to prevent many diseases. We carried out many activities for the innovation of prickly pears. Some of these have been included in the PSR of the region of Sicily within the technical, agronomic, and management properties of this product. Many objectives, such as the optimization of the management, the increase in the marketing calendar, and the increase of the shelf life. So starting from, so just to talk about some of these innovations, I would like to say something about the innovative protocols in irrigation through fertile irrigation with with some with some elements, with some products that can avoid pollution of any type. And so to optimize the administration, we have also had some benefits in the production in terms of size of the food, of the product, and also in the thickness of the fruit, to increase the market and distribute the product in faraway markets. Also, the extension of the marketing calendar is important. Maybe you know that the calendar can be extended with the second flowering in the period of September, October up to mid-November. We have extended it until December, when the price of the product is higher, and so the remuneration for the producer is higher. So this leads to a decrease in productivity per plant, per hectare, and we have performed an economic analysis, and we have seen that there were no problems in terms of quality of the product and resistance of the product, and so there is a big profitability for the product. There are different problems in post collection of this product because of the structure of the fruit, because many fungi can enter the fruit, and fruits can perish at environment temperature, but also in the fridge, because temperature lower than 10, 12 degrees lead to some damages that ruin the product, and then the presence of glochids lead to some problems in the brushing, and there can be mechanical issues on the product, and then the limited shelf life of the project. So we have established a protocol for the post collection management with 20-50 degrees of water, the use of soil lecithin and sodium carbonate, which are both products admitted in organic production. And here we have obtained important improvements both in the reduction of diseases and the incidence of perished fruit. Another important aspect is the one linked to the possibility to extend the use of the product in a fourth range, and so peeled fruit, which makes the consumers closer to the product. So through this product, there is the possibility to get the consumers closer, and so we have established some protocols, both with the use of electrolyzed water. Grazie. And also with different protocols as for different gas blendings of nitrogen, oxygen, and CO2, which could lead to an extension of the shelf life of the product. So we can have a product that can last 14-15 days. Of course, this has a strategic value because it promotes the product, it makes a product be known by other people, it wins the mistrust of the consumers, make the consumers more loyal, and the consumer can spend a higher price and accepts innovations of product. Innovation can be the no palitos, that is the use of the leaves in cuisine, and so to use it for several reasons. There are different lines of activities in which the University of Catania is working, as for the prickly lines, from the collection of the germplasm to the introduction of foreign varieties, and so pollination to create new genotypes, the multiplication in vitro, the analysis of DNA with markers. As I told you, the somaclonal variability is one of the techniques which can allow us to have biotypes and ecotypes which are new and have higher features. This is one of the features we are following. And then the culture, the growing of this fruit for the extraction of compounds that can be used in pharmacology, and so we can have many products and many uses. And through e-breeding, we are trying to find new varieties in order to increase the genetic origin of this fruit. For example, an hybrid made of in hybrid with Opuntia ficus and other species. Moreover, we genetically characterized the germplasm not only of the types grown in Sicily, but we also added some varieties of Opuntia present in Mexico and several varieties of prickly pears coming from other countries, which have been provided by the University of Jerusalem. And we have seen that there is a very narrow genetic basis, especially in the growing of the prickly pear, and the huge biodiversity for the Mexican ones, and there is no match between the different clusters. I'd like to conclude with this activity, which is one of the last activities for which we have been contacted to have a growing in vitro micropropagation. So we are establishing some protocols to micropropagate several varieties, not only Sicilian varieties but also Mexican varieties, to obtain in a very quick way thousands of plants of prickly pears that can be used for the production of biomass, so for animal feeding and not only. So this could be one of the several routes to follow to propagate these plants. Today we are at the expo, we're talking about biodiversity, but in this case we must talk about a unique product, because it is a unique product and we must try to combine these features to Sicily. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Professor Coldirella, for your presentation. So now we give the floor to another Sicilian Eccellences, which is the artichoke, and so we give the floor to Professor Cristina Rettuccia from the University of Catania, who's going to talk about what we are doing for this type of cultivation, which is typical of the Mediterranean Sea. Buon pomeriggio a tutti, ringrazio tutti coloro che hanno organizzato questo incontro. Mi chiamo Cristina Restuccia, sono microbiologa all'Università di Catania. Oggi vi vorrei parlare dei risultati principali di un progetto di ricerca sulla produzione di carciofi in Sicilia. L'Italia è il principale produttore di carciofi al mondo, con circa 50.000 ettari di terra coltivata, 500.000 tonnellate di prodotti e una produzione di circa 550 milioni di euro.
Among the Italian regions, Sicily, with a cultivated area of about 50. The production has an high economic impact in Sicily, with a total marketable output production of about 190 million of euros. This culture is a typical Mediterranean crop, which is mainly cultivated in the Caltanissetta and Agrigento provinces, with respectively 41 and 26%, but also in Palermo and Catania areas. The importance of globe artichokes is based on different aspects. First of all, the economic value and also the stability of income for the agricultural community, especially in those areas where it represents the sole source of economic support. It's a culture in perfect balance with the Mediterranean environment, and it is characterized by a high nutritional, functional, and hygienic quality. Also, its byproducts may be considered as added value compounds, for example, for inulin and polyphenols in the artichoke, and the high biodiversity of this culture in Sicily makes it suitable for a wide range of uses, mainly in the food sector, but also in the no-food one, as for example the ornamental sector, where the immature heads or fully flowering buds which produce large lavender flowers may be commercialized as fresh or essiccated products. Despite the fact that this culture is very ancient, the innovation of the product, of the agricultural practices, and of post-harvest processing has increased significantly in the last years in Sicily. First of all, with regard to the product, if until 1995 the two available cultivars in Sicily were represented by Violetto di Sicilia and Spinoso di Palermo, now about 10 different cultivars are available, for example Violetto di Provenza, Apollo, Tema 2000 or Romanesco clone C3. And this extension of cultivar availability permitted to extend also the harvest time, which spans from November with the early harvest of Tema 2000 and Violetto to May with the late harvest of hybrids from seeds. Within each cultivar and for each harvest time, the fresh heads may be furnished to the fresh consumption, for example, as first quality or second quality capitula, or to industry for canning or frozen products. In addition, the group coordinated by Professor Giovanni Mauro Micale created the first genetic maps of Sicilian artichokes. The innovation of the agronomic practice permitted to adopt environmentally low impact protocols, both for fertilization and for water input. About fertilization, before there was a protocol with an high input of fertilizer in terms of nitrogen, potassium and phosphate, with a total input of about 1,000 kilograms per hectare. Now the new protocol reduced this input, this total input, to about 580 kilograms per hectare, with a correspondent increase in the nutritional features of globe artichokes in terms of total polyphenols, vitamin C, micro and macronutrients. Also, the irrigation system was significantly improved, as it passed from the traditional one to a micro-irrigation technology plus mist irrigation, climate regulating irrigation, which improved the productivity of Sicilian artichoke fields and also the number of marketable heads. With reference to post-harvest processing, new protocols were designed to improve the shelf life, to extend the shelf life, and to improve microbiological, especially fungal contamination, chemical and nutritional features of fresh globe artichokes. A low-impact sanitizer was adopted, the ozone, by an experimental ozonizing washing plant, and also by direct injection of gaseous ozone into the storerooms. This permitted to preserve the nutritional features of fresh heads and also to maintain the microbiological quality. With reference to the strengthening of the identity and traceability of commercialized Sicilian artichokes, which traditionally have been commercialized as bunches, Now, new reusable and recyclable cellular polypropylene packages were successfully adopted with the term arancia rossa. Also in the technological processing aimed at improving the convenience and consumption of globe artichoke eggs on a wider scale, a new protocol of minimally processing was adopted with controlled gas permeability films, just to avoiding the tricky and long time spending operation of trimming at home. The process of innovation transfer from the research institution to the growers and to the processing companies is already in the stage of implementation, and in the next few years, also thanks to the project PON Shelf Life, which is funded by the European Union, the Ministry of the Economic Development and the Ministry of Education, University and Research, Sicilian globe artichoke will broaden the range of the products available on the market. I would like to mention the people who are involved in this activity: Professor Giovanni Mauro Micale, Dr. Sara Lombardo, Gaetano Pandino and Giuseppe Muratore, and thank you all for your attention.
Grazie per l'interessante relazione su quelle che sono le innovazioni.
On the innovations obtained thanks to the commitment of the Research Institute of Sicily. So now we give the floor to Professor Branca, who's going to talk about another excellence which concerns vegetable growing.
Grazie per il coinvolgimento in questo seminario.
Thank you for the involvement in this seminar.
La Sicilia chiaramente ha una antica
Sicily
storia anche per
has an ancient history because of horticulture, because it was rich in civilization which crossed it. So you see all the routes that from east to west, north to south, crossed the Mediterranean basin. Clearly, Sicily was at the center of this basin, and so this contamination of the civilization and culture
presa in considerazione
is reflected in its culture, in its cuisine, which is very typical, and in its horticultural diversity. In fact, we see that there is a wide variability, both in terms of species and also in every species there are differences. For example, we see here the different species which are represented in these pictures. So these are all varieties which come from other areas, and we also have different tomatoes coming from other areas and which are widespread in Sicily. So the niche and the heritage of all this biodiversity is found especially in family gardens and suburban gardens, because industrial horticulture, with the arrival of the new cultivars and hybrids, is losing a lot of this material. Unfortunately, in Catania we have conserved them. We have a big collection of local varieties, and there are many spontaneous species, many of which are used every day in Sicily, and this is a big cultural resource of the Sicilian people that is contaminating also the food industry. But the most important the thing is that many of these species, spontaneous species, are relative to the industrial ones, and so they are very important for the genetic improvement and the innovation of product and process also in horticulture. Of course, the most emblematic case is that of the brassicaceae, because in Sicily we have different groups from the cauliflower, pigmented cauliflowers, especially in Sicily, the green in western Sicily, the purple one in eastern, and then we have different types of broccoli, from the sprouting broccoli to such as the ones from Calabria, which have different forms and shapes than the one which are marketed. Why have we focused on brassicaceae? Because an interest in Sicily there is a great genetic diversity, because nutraceutical features are well known, and different medical teams have identified these nutraceutical traits for many years now, and because the new food industry, the new food ranges give new development lines for these products, and because brassicaceae make it possible to implement those processes of environmentally friendly farming, and so organic methods which are not cannot be applied in on other cultures. So here we have food range applications such as the pigmented cauliflowers, but we're also working on the sprouting broccoli, which are very important. Why all this diversity? Because the Mediterranean basin and Sicily are the center of origin for the diversification of brassica olearacea. Thanks to this classification, we have new types, different new types. This is due to the genetic mechanisms, and so there is no self-fecundation among plants, and so there is the creation of new genotypes, new forms, new types, which have given a selection of product innovation, which is very interesting. These are the spontaneous brassicae, which feed this diversity. These are long-lasting and perennial. They have been used to increase the level of useful glucosinolates, and for the broccoli, for example, so there are new cultivars of broccoli, the super broccoli, which were realized thanks to the inclusion of spontaneous genes in these varieties. And this is another interesting element to give value to this brassicaceae and the products at nutraceutical level. Here we can see our experience. We saw that the glucarafenina, which is the precursor of sulforafane, which is a powerful anti-carcinogen, can be found especially in the local cultivars, not only of broccoli, but also pigmented cauliflower, whereas in the F1 cultivars of white cauliflower, there is no glucoraphanin, but the cinegreen, which is a quite toxic component. In the selection works to improve the genetics, we have improved our cultivars both in terms of glucosinolates and glucoraphanin and glucobrasicin compared to the F1 hybrids. Also polyphenols, the content of polyphenols is higher than the F1 hybrids. These are some types which we selected and which are marketed at level of Leniresis and substandard cultivar, but we are working to create F1. This is, for example, an F1 which we have encouraged. This is the diversity of broccoli. Also in the cabbage broccoli, we find types which are completely different from the F1 hybrids, which are here as Royal Bluis Cano F1, which are similar to the Calabria ones, whereas in our origin we used also the leaves, and so we are working in order to diversify the product. Here we can see how our local cultivars have high levels and different level of polyphenols, and they are very different one from the other. The same is done for the kale, the leeks, cauliflower, cabbage. We have Sicilian cabbages, which are more interesting than the black cabbage of Tuscany, which is used a lot. And we have seen that between the Sicilian and the Spanish ones, the glucosinolates patterns change a lot, and the areas, the locations have made it possible to set the genes for the production of glucoraphanin, glucobrasicin, etc. These are the spontaneous populations of these spontaneous species of brassica, which are related to each other because they have the same chromosomic number. These are the places where they grow, rocks, areas, marginal areas, very dry areas along the coasts. So within the European project, we studied one of these, which is the Brassica madrugarpa, which is typical to two minor islands and is present only on a 2-kilometer surface. It is a very rare species which can be valorized from a nutraceutical point of view. This is the level of polyphenols, so glucosinolates in the different spontaneous populations. You see that each one of them has its own profile and history, so they must all be enhanced in the breeding. Also, as for the antioxidant capacity, we have, with different methods, we see that they have high antioxidant capacities, and we have also seen that there is a genetic flow between wild species and grown species. For this reason, our local cultivars have a high content of these compounds, because there is an active genetic flow between the spontaneous and the cultivated varieties. Here we have seen that between the spontaneous and cultivated populations there is always a positive interaction. But the most interesting, I think, is that variability is within the population. So this means that there is a lot of genetic richness which must be enhanced. These are all studies which support the genetic flow, and then we have other studies on the spontaneous species of the Mediterranean Sea which have led to similar varieties, even if the genetic patterns are different. For example, here we can see that for a gene which conditioning the form of the flower, the alleles are quite different based on the population. And what we have said is very topical. We are working a lot in order to identify and consolidate these new research lines for future agricultural innovation.
Let's give the floor to the next speaker, Mrs. Argentati. She will talk about the citrus fruits, which are the main products that we have, and she will talk about these fruits in a different way. So we give her the floor. Yeah, thank you. I will talk about citrus fruits, but after my speech, there will be the speech of Mr. Pashuda, and he will go further on the species and varieties from which a different point of view. I am very happy to be here today in a context where we talk about scientific research, and I will talk about my scientific research, and this is an innovative proposal. And this production district is a path that we are having. In the previous years, it was a very good place for experimentation. This is an instrument acknowledged by the department with a degree of 2011. What about the subscribers of the pact, the agreement? They are the main production companies and processing companies of Sicilian agriculture. You can see the places of the full consumption of protection, the orange of Sicily, the lemon of Siracusa and Perdonato. And we also have 8 agricultural representative bodies as the Confcooperativa, and we also have 13 local bodies, industries of processing, for example, and many other cooperatives and organizations of producers. It is very complicated to put everything together. This is not necessary to say, but I believe that it's quite simple to understand. And now it's clear that all these companies, having signed these the agreement, gave themselves some goals. The district of Sicily is an instrument. Let's imagine it as a table where the stakeholders of the supply chain must decide some strategies and improve these strategies, because they think that these are the main strategies compared to the others. And this is very important because usually we have a fragmentation of our strategies. So I go fast, and these are various initiatives that we are carrying out. This is a very good initiative on the promotion on the citrus productions of quality through the networks of the markets. So we do not have to, we should create a parallel path. And now let's talk about the scientific research. So what's the value of the production of citrus fruits in Italy? Our consumers must know these characteristics, these features. Today, the consumer is much more interested and careful compared to the past. So Sicily must be known as through the various paths, the paths of the blossom. And we brought our tourists in the best commercialization companies that we had through the the support of every consortium of production, and this is something that is giving us positive results. In this case, I move fast. This is an article in Japanese, and this is the result from this path that we carried out with these tourists. And then we have another project, and I will stop here. And now we will watch a video. We have the presence of representatives of Coca-Cola Italia and also Mrs. Ulrike Sapiro, that will talk about her personal point of view of these scientific research carried out by the District of Citrus Fruits in Sicily through a collaboration with the University of Sicily. So now let's take a look at this video. This line has a problem of management of these products. So we process a kilogram of citrus fruits and we obtain 40% of products for the human consumption and 60% of solid wastes. So the main problem of a company is the processing of these wastes, these rejects. So the luck of our companies is that 60% of the transformed matter is a secondary matter that can be processed into different products. So the more we have a promotion of these products, the less we will have some cost for these products. And this will create an added value for the rejects. When we built these districts of citrus fruits in Sicily, we immediately understood this problem that was proposed when we were asked how to intervene in a positive way in the territory. And so this is a problem that can be and can become a resource because the use of the citrus pulp is something that is already carried on but needs to be experimented and improved. And we have to let everybody know these products in order to adapt these products, these solutions for the companies. The role of the agriculture wants to say something about the opportunities of this system. So the integration of different biomasses of the Mediterranean agriculture for the use of energy, in particular electric energy, but also chemical energy or bioplastics, and in the end arriving at the final product. So this experimentation reached a very important phase. So we understood how to design an installation, how to improve our companies. And this is possible on the basis of 4 tanks of biogas in order to find the different compositions and reaching as a first step the best conditions for the biomass. The Coca-Cola production was very glad to finance a project that for the first time in Sicily transforms a problem into something good. And this allows to bring innovation to the supply chain in Sicily by creating something that was a problem for the operators. And for a long time, this was a trouble, and we are transforming this trouble into a resource, an opportunity for the entire citrus supply chain in Sicily. This concept can can enhance the final product in order to have a good Mediterranean agriculture. The final slogan is "Feed the soil to feed the planet." hope that you enjoyed this video. It will be translated into English. We are doing it during these days, so this is our contribution to the roundtable that we are having today. Just a last thing, we are talking about citrus fruits, but those who know these trouble know that such an installation works with not only with citrus pulps. We are using these pulps with other organic matters. For example, pickled pear or other fruits. And this installation that is in the faculty of agrarian faculty of Catania has been put at the disposal of the other production districts when we want to reach these kind of results. So I think that this is a very interesting thing, and allow me to say it, if a foundation invested towards this direction, it's clear that they believe in this problem and they also have the possibility to find an aggregating system of supply chain as a reference for the entire territory. Thank you. I would like to thank Mrs. Argentati for her speech and for the good capacity of synthesis despite the video. So now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Pasciuta for another aspect of the citrus fruit productions, and we will talk about the PDO and PGS productions. So let's give the floor to Mr. Pasciuta. Thank you so much for the invitation. It is an honor for me. We are not researchers, we are operators in the ground. So every day we have to put together all the stakeholders of the production. As Federica said before, we have a very tough task, and the certificated productions have some positive results, are having some positive results. We are working a lot on this, and the region has something to say in this matter. So rapidly, first of all, let's say that Sicily, as somebody said, Sicily is the Sicily of citrus fruits. We are the core of citrus fruits, and this is confirmed by our figures. 58% of the production of citrus fruits is in Sicily, and we have 62 oranges and 92 lemon. So you can understand the importance of the citrus fruits for Sicily. So you can see that the orange is the most important cultivation, followed by lemon and the other productions. So let's expand the aspect on the PDO and PGS production. When the European community wanted to value the typical production by using these denomination, from that moment in Italy, for the richness of productions and soils, we saw the existence of this situation. In Italy, we have 19 citrus production at knowledge, 12 in Italy, and the rest of the productions all over the world. So just imagine what it means for our region. So 2 in Campania, 3 in Calabria, 3 in Puglia, and other 4 in Sicily. So we have 6 productions, up to 19 all over the world in Sicily. So it's an important biodiversity with the various territories that are all different one each other. And in Sicily we have the major number of operators and companies in the organic sector. We have 3 PDO and PGS groups. We have the lemon in Messina and the other consortium, the Arancia di Ribera PDO, the only PDO all over the world with this acknowledgement. And the consortium is a reason of pride. And we have the other consortiums for lemons and tangerines, two important realities that are having some acknowledgements. So now let's take a look at these productions and what's behind these productions, the PDO and PGS certification productions. So the red orange of Sicily, these are the figures: 32 municipalities, 32,000 hectares, 5,000 producers, 450 producers, and 50 centers of processing. So just imagine for a territory of 3 municipalities, 3 provinces, what it could mean. These are 3 varieties: Tarocco, Moro, and Sanguinello. And then we have the other clones. We have dozens of varieties representing the PGS of red orange in Sicily. This is the major cultivation that we have in Italy and the most representative. The goal of this territory, of this production, is to promote the aggregation of the productions and improve the sale of these products. In the topic of promotion of a product, we also have the promotion of our territory. Once we talk about product, we have to talk about territory. And when we visit some citrus groves, we will see that there are some territories that are very important from an environmental point of view. And this is another goal that we are trying to promote. The orange of Ribera, PDO. You can see the figures, so these are the figures of the orange of Ribera with a turnover of 60 million euros. We have 2,000 small producers that we are trying to put together in order to promote and enhance this product. We have a trend of growth that has begun 6 years ago, and we are trying today to represent the most important cultivation of the entire territory. So let's take a look at the 3 varieties, the Brazilian, the Washington Navel, and Navelina. So a blonde orange cultivated all over the world, but the real one is called Brasileira. This is the territory of cultivation. These are some pictures of our territory and of our enhancement of the orange through some events. For example, we support the FAE for the support of the actions in Colimbetra, the garden of Colimbetra, and this gives us more visibility at the international level. And this is what Mrs. Argentati said as to the activation of an improvement of the production through the enhancement of the touristic sector. The lemon of Siragusa, other important figures, and 60 million of turnover. This is a typical variety widespread in the province of Siragusa. These are some images that show you what beauty means in that territory. The other feature is this variety, the Limone Interdonato, acknowledged in 2009, so PGS. We have 8 million euros of turnover, and it's a natural hybrid between some other varieties. And this base must be protected because it's not that easy to cultivate those products in these areas. So we need a major support from from everybody. So let's finish with the other products that are waiting for the certification. The tangerine of Ciascuno. Here we have the area of the Concadoro in Palermo, the most important area for the citrus agriculture in Sicily. And here again, in this case, the president fights every day in order to improve this variety and to preserve the beauty, the natural beauty of the area of Ciascuno and Concadoro. To conclude, the lemon of the Etna, this is something that we are trying to enhance. It is more production, and we have an important environmental context. So through this association, we are continuing to grow. We are giving a stimulus to this. In the context of the 6 consortiums that today belong to the consortium of citrus fruits in Sicily. These are some pictures of the lemons in Etna. This is a very important thing, and the district is trying to enhance this production. This is another situation where, as a district with every consortium, we are trying to enhance the biodiversity and the production work through the promotion of the territory, because like this, it will be possible to enhance these biodiversities in order to create employment. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pasciuta.
Because you let us understand that we need to safeguard the territory and we need to start virtuous processes. I recall that in Sicilian, the garden Iadino is just an agricultural space, a productive space, because it is connected to citrus, but also to decoration, and so there is an identification of the two words. So now we will have the last Italian presentations. I thank the speakers for for the fact that they respected the time at their disposal. So now we will talk about strawberry. Mrs. Caracciolo from the Craforli will deal with this topic, and this shows that our Sicilian researchers have connections with other researchers in Italy. Thank you. Good afternoon. Strawberry in Sicily is a species of high interest because even if it is widespread all over Italy with different varieties and with different cultivation techniques, for Sicily it is very important, especially because the areal is earlier, so is the area where the production starts before than any other region in Italy. This is a fruit which has some nutritional aspects which are very important, and it is a nutraceutical product because it has many substances, phytochemical compounds such as polyphenols, ascorbic acid, anthocyanins, and ellagic acid, which make it which have a high antioxidant capacity they can counteract the free radicals. And the antioxidant capacity is given by the high content in polyphenols, by the content of vitamin C and other compounds which are antioxidant. In Sicily, it is widespread, especially in the area of Marsala and a part also in Prolo and in the area of Siracusa. We have something also in Sciacca, but we talk about wild strawberry. At the University of Palermo, they have tried to identify a technique of cultivation. In Sicily, the cultivation of strawberry takes place in a protected environment, but in the area of Brolo, we have seen a full field cultivation. So they have tried to identify an environmentally friendly technique and at the same time a technique which allows for earlier productions. So there has been the introduction of techniques such as the cultivation of the land by using the solarization of the land as a replacement of some chemical substances. The new selections through a program of genetic improvement has been carried out in cooperation with the unit of research of Forli, just to identify the varieties which could have a good production and a high quality of the fruit. Moreover, the plants which are used in our plants mostly come from Poland because they are fresh plants and consequently because of the high distance there are problems as for the attachment to the ground, and so some tests have been performed to identify some areas, especially in the area of Negrodi, where where the production has been tested in several times of the year. And within the Rural Development Program, Measure 124, there has been the transfer of this innovation at different companies with the objective to have a Sicilian strawberry system at closed cycle. So by intervening both on the production in nurseries, on the identification of new cultivars appropriate for the protected cultivation and on mountains, the identification of the technique appropriate both for the traditional growing and the organic growing. So the use of geofumigation and varieties which can resist to several pests and difficult weather conditions, and to identify a specific market for our strawberry. The project has involved several companies in collaboration with research centers, and the activities were to identify areas in the Nebrodi in which fresh plants could be identified, and other companies which worked in the production of different species with the heads. The beginning of the production starts also at the end of November for some varieties, and some demonstration camps were performed in the area of Marsala and in the Nebrodi. Moreover, some tests have been done in one company for the organic production, and some analysis on the organoleptic and aromatic features of these new varieties and selections have been carried out, and they have also been transformed in jam with a specific brand. So the results which were obtained with this, thanks to this project of technological innovation, as for the identification of nurseries in Sicily and the economic benefits for the local companies, there have been important results, especially for the employment in general, because we are talking about disadvantaged areas, mountain areas. Moreover, the identification of selections and varieties appropriate for the different production areas has made it possible to obtain some productions with higher organoleptic qualities by keeping at the same time high quality in the production. And then there has been identification of the technique of the organic growing and the reduction of energy inputs, but at the same time a high quality product has been achieved, and the consumer wants high quality. So as I was saying, now we have the opportunity to have another point of view on some aspects which concern these excellences of Sicilian fruit and vegetables. In particular, we have invited some colleagues coming from different countries to give their point of view on some aspects. So we start with Professor Reinhold Karl, coming from Germany, who's going to talk about functional and health substances of the Sicilian artichoke.
Profit from the lecture that was given by Professor Cristina.
Come ha detto la professoressa Cristina Restuccia, ha già parlato del carciofo e quindi vi parlerò degli ingredienti attivi del carciofo. Qui potete vedere che ci sono diverse pubblicazioni che parlano del carciofo e ci sono molte pubblicazioni che riguardano appunto questa pianta. È utilizzata per applicazioni industriali ed è sempre più utilizzata per scopi farmaceutici.
We are mainly interested in the polyphenols that are ubiquitous in plant kingdom, but there is a big diversity of secondary plant metabolites. There's a variation of the skeletal structure, and the polyphenols are a class of active ingredients with high reactivity. You see there is big difference in the total content of polyphenols, and Globe artichoke ranks number 1. It's very rich in polyphenols, and therefore it's highly interesting for scientists. Here you see a large list of health benefits that are ascribed to polyphenols. The polyphenols are subdivided into flavonoids and into mono and decaffeoylquinic acids. And you see some products that you can buy in pharmacies or health shops. All of them are based on artichoke, some on the leaves and others on the capitula. You see antimicrobial, antioxidant, hepatoprotective, antioxidant, diuretic, and so on and so on. So it's a big field for pharmacists, it's a big field for chemists and for microbiologists. These are, again, the main classes, the general structures of the main active ingredients belonging to the flavonoids and to caffeoylquinic acids. And you can see from the structures, where is the laser pointer? It's no more active. Pardon? No more active. Okay, but the expert would see that the hydroxyl functions. It's okay. It's not that the hydroxyl functions are very reactive, and therefore these active ingredients are rapidly oxidized, and this is, for instance, the reason for the enzymatic browning. That's a problem. But they are also a part of the resistance of the plant. Therefore, I think breeding to reduce the content of these compounds makes no sense. No. So we looked into some factors influencing the polyphenol content of globe artichoke. First, it depends on the genotype. There is some diversity in genotype. It is dependent on the part of the plant, and it's dependent on agronomic factors, post-harvest storage, and last not least from the industrial processing of the plant. Here, just to give you a rough overview, you see from the columns there is big difference in the contents of the active ingredients. It's difference between the different plant parts, and there is difference also between artichoke varieties. So it's nice to look into the big diversity of the plant and to select the best ones of them. Here again, another parameter that merits our interest. There is big difference between winter harvest and spring harvest. You see also between the different plant organs, we have very big difference in the content, and you see the highest values are always found in the receptacles. That is number 3 on the picture down. There you can see the highest concentration of polyphenols. Again, there is big difference if you look into the products that are available on the market. You see number 1 to 6. These are products, pharmaceutical products based on artichoke, and number 7 to 13 are artichoke-based dietary supplements. And you nicely see that there is big difference. This may be due to different cultivars. This may be due to different plant parts, for instance, leaves and the globe artichoke itself. And therefore, you have big diversity in the quality of such products. A second aspect that is very interesting for pharmacognoscists, for chemists, and for pharmacists is the high content in inulin. In contrast to most other plants, the carbohydrates are not stored in the form of starch, but in the form of inulin. And as the expert sees, inulin is a polymer mainly built up from fructose, and the number of fructose elements in the molecule varies between 30 and 40, and at the end you can always find a glucose. So it's a polysaccharide. It's water soluble like most polysaccharides, and as a big difference to starch, it is a low calorie product, so it's not completely digested like starch. It has a very low sweetening power. It's less than sucrose, and it's a rich source of soluble fibers. So the chemical traits of inulin strongly depend on the degree of polymerization. With higher degree of polymerization, water solubility decreases. Also, the mean molecular weight depends on the degree of polymerization, and all the traits depend on cultivar, physiological stage, harvest time, and so on. There are several health benefits. Inulin promotes the immune system because the growth of bifidobacteria in the colon is strongly enhanced, and the growth of harmful pathogens is suppressed. There is very little impact on blood sugar glucose levels, unlike other sugars, and so the absorption is not insulin dependent. That's very beneficial for diabetic patients. Inulin reduces acylglycerols, that means lipids in the blood, and lowers the risk of suffering from heart disease. It's rich in calcium, magnesium, and zinc, and even iron that is absorbed in the colon, and it is thus aiding in the prevention of osteoporosis. So it increases the regularity and the volume of stool and reduces constipation and diarrhea. There are some other sources of inulin, and again you see artichoke is a very nice source, and you can benefit from the ingestion of artichoke by ingesting inulin. There is a variation of the inulin content depending on the cultivar. It's not so much impressive, but you see it merits to select the best variety if you go for inulin contents. And here we have a look into the chemical composition of the receptacles of globe artichoke genotypes. You can see there is variation of protein content, mineral content, polyphenol content, and also inulin content. So I think for breeders it's fascinating to look into the differences. Last picture, just to show you the diversity of the inulin. Here we have made an HPLC chromatogram of the inulin, and you can see there are polymers up to polymerization degree 70. So you see it's highly polymerized inulin in contrast to other plants, and there is also big variety among the different cultivars, inulin content, and also the degree of polymerization varies between 5 and 16 normally. So that's a rough overview over the active ingredients that we are interested in. And you see it's a big playing ground for chemists and for scientists in general. Thanks for your attention.
Grazie veramente per questo contributo che ci ha illustrato appunto le caratteristiche.
I've shown the health features of one of the products of our land. So now we give the floor to Agnieszka Bartek. I hope the pronunciation was correct. Was going to talk about the health and nutraceutical aspects of garden horticulture. Innanzitutto vorrei ringraziare Ferdinando
of this conference for the very prestigious invitation. I would like to tell about more about what benefits can be from eating brassicas, and most importantly, why. These are really very special vegetables, and I will try to tell you why and how we can make them even better for our health. But I have to start from my very early encounter on the correlation between what we eat and cancer risk. This graph is from a very old paper which I came across when I was still a student. In this moment, I didn't realize that this will be the subject of my scientific interest. these were the first epidemiological studies that demonstrated that meat consumption can increase the risk of cancer. And when you look at such graph, you always look for your country. And my country turned out to be at benefit, that we Poles could eat more meat than others at the same risk of cancer. The same was with Germany and Hungary. Hungary was obvious, they drink a lot of red wine and they have plenty of vegetables in their dietary tradition, but Poles and Germans, not so much. Still, we seem to be protected against meat-related cancer. All data were then confirmed in many studies, and meat was always a risk factor in the most common cancers like breast, prostate, lung. And these data initiated studies on environmental cancer risk factors. And it turned out that smoking, which is expected, but also diet are major risk factors. Also exposures to toxic components and infections. So this can be divided in two types of risk factors, which are toxic compounds and inflammation. This suggested to scientists that if we could somehow boost our own defense against toxic compounds and inflammation, our risk of cancer will be diminished. This led to the development of the field, which is called chemoprevention, in opposition to chemotherapy, which involves substances, natural, can be synthetic, that diminish the risk or prevent its development of cancer. For healthy people with some family records of cancer or not, it means that the chemoprevention should be non-toxic, and not toxic chemoprevention is dietary chemoprevention. Can it be successful? These are very recent estimates from American Institute for Cancer Research. For the United States, it is estimated that if people do what they are recommended, well over 300,000 cancer cases would be prevented. And this is the point to mention that Italy is a leading country in Europe when it comes to the studies on chemoprevention, with such professors as Adriana Albini from Milan and Silvio De Flora for Genova, who are world-recognized experts in this field. So if we know the risk, we want to know what can prevent it. And many food components were studied in this regard, like fiber. It was shown to diminish risk on cancer in some studies, but not in others. The same with the other components. Vitamin supplements were always negative. The only food ingredient that was repeatedly giving benefit were brassica vegetables. What's so special about them? Oh, here the picture I love that shows brassicas in the aureola of our daily plate. This is just for a break. What's so special about nutrition facts? Well, they are low in calories, low in fat, no saturated fats, and important vitamins. But it is not really the most important part. What's the most important part is the defense antipest system these plants developed, which consists of glucosinolates, mentioned by Ferdinand before, and the enzyme myrosinase. They are kept in the plant in separate compartments. Only when there is attack and the plant tissue is damaged, we do the same in our kitchen, they meet, and when they meet, enzymes start to work on the glucosinolates, and as you chop the cabbage, at the beginning nothing happens, then everybody can smell it. The beneficial compounds begin to be released. Some chemistry. Myrosinase catalyzes the first reaction, and then there are other enzymes that can produce different products These products are really wonderful fungicides, then can block the development of fungi, bacteria, nematodes, insects. But the most important fact was in late 90s when the Paul Talalay discovered that the ingredient responsible for anti-carcinogenic activity of broccoli is sulforaphane. This changed the paradigm, and the studies demonstrated that isothiocyanates and related compounds in those can trigger several mechanisms that prevent cancer development. This is chemistry behind. These compounds can bind with the important moieties in our organisms, and especially important are thiogroups because they govern two most important signaling pathways. One is, I will go to the next one. One is responsible for stopping inflammation, and another one for induction of protective systems. So at the beginning I mentioned that if something can stop inflammation and induce protective mechanisms, it would be anti-carcinogenic, and indeed glucosinolates and their degradation products are capable of doing this. But these are only two types of products, isothiocyanates and indoles. Others are not important from health perspective or can be even not good for us. So we wanted to see how this is in plants, how the conversion of glucosinolates to those important products happens in the plant. As you can see in these profiles, different part plants, as it was with the phenols, is different. And also the formation of glucosinolates, of isothiocyanates and indoles differs between part plants, and the blue line shows how much of the initial glucosinolate load is then transformed into beneficial compounds. And as you can see, it's never 100%. In edible part, small heads in Brussels, it's 60%, but that's at most. The same with the cauliflower. We have different cauliflowers. Violet one was the one I brought from Catania. They differ in the composition and the amount of glucosinolates. They also differ in the amount of formed beneficial components. As you can see, white cauliflower, only 12% of glucosinolates is transformed for our benefit. In Romanescu 90, and purple cauliflower is not bad, 70%. So can we do something about switching off these undesirable enzymes? And the answer is yes. We can do it in a very easy way, but by mild heat treatment, but especially with microwaves. The power which was applied, 100 watts, is so small that you would even not use it for defrosting. And these are just seconds, and they seem to switch off the enzymes, enzymatic activities we don't want, and still preserve myrosinase activity, which is shown as red dots. And as you can compare in control samples that was not treated in any way, the formation of the beneficial components is markedly increased. These are bars over the red line. The same with the sprouts, green bars, non-treated sprouts, orange bars treated. So as you can see, we can vastly enhance the amount of compounds which are good for our health. So if I have just another minute. So this was about the plant and the components that increase our own defense. But isothiocyanates have also the ability to bind food carcinogens. Sorry, it's something wrong with the writing above. So food carcinogens are formed in meat during processing, and these food carcinogens can react with isothiocyanates to not dangerous compounds. So the data for mutagenicity is linearly dependent on the amount. We prepared such burgers, pork burgers, with breadcrumbs, which was our control, and shredded or lyophilized cabbage, fried them until well done on lard, and then tested the amount of carcinogens and mutagenicity, and we could show that both formation of carcinogens and mutagenicity is decreased by such combination, which is, by the way, very tasty. Isothiocyanates can induce our protective system, but also can diminish the dangerous stuff in our food. This is the place where the studies were carried out. Faculty of Chemistry, Gdańsk University of Technology, team behind research, Barbara, Anna, and Jacek are my colleagues. The remaining people were PhD students, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Ringraziamo veramente questa interessante relazione che ci ha mostrato appunto gli aspetti nutraceutici, medicinali di alcune brassicacee che riescono anche a migliorare alcuni errori della nostra. Comunque rimaniamo all'ultima relazione.
So now the last presentation from Enrique Sapiro from Coca-Cola Company, Energy for Life, the Ruolo Foundation supporting local agriculture. Grazie molto e buonasera. Ho un compito molto difficile perché non ho...
But also the project that I'm talking about had already been shown in a very, very beautiful video. So what I'm going to do, I keep it very short to also give some space to the last speaker that is still on the list. And we'll add a company perspective to what we've been hearing about, because ultimately many of the produce, or all the produce I would suggest, that we've been hearing about will find a market. They need to find a market to be sold to, and that ultimately is the value chains and the supply chains that end in companies, food and beverage companies like Coca-Cola. So I'm bringing in a perspective from the other end of the supply chain. And I'd like to bring, maybe take the local project in Sicily on citrus and put it into a global context, which of course a company like Coca-Cola would need to do, because ultimately, whilst we are very interested in promoting and developing best practice and innovation locally, we ultimately want to scale. We need to scale sustainability and best practice to a global level. So that's a bit the context for what I want to say, but it's going to be very top line and short, I hope. So I need to do this first. So let's, are you the man? Yes, good. Let's first look into the question of why our Italian Coca-Cola business has been coming to the Coca-Cola Foundation, that included also me in the decision process, to propose a project in Sicily on promoting sustainability in the processing, in particular the waste processing of citrus fruit. First of all, it was about an opportunity to engage locally with our local supply chain. Wherever we are operating, and we operate globally, we try to source locally as much as possible, and our Italian business has been committed for years and years to buy locally in Italy, specifically its oranges and citrus product. Secondly, over the last few years, certainly last 5 years, sustainability in our supply chain, in particular on the agricultural ingredients, has come up the company's agenda and priority list massively. So of course that seeps into all parts of our business, and including the local supply that we are buying. And thirdly, as said, we love to innovate, we love to develop, but we want to scale it up ultimately. So these roundtables, but other activities help us to amplify best practice, to showcase what is possible, to put a seed of an idea into a market, and then see what other partners come on board to help bring it to the next level and really scale it up. So these were the reasons for us to say, yep, that is a very helpful approach. Ultimately, very briefly, what was this project about? The idea that came up was one big challenge in Sicily, we understood, was the disposal of citrus waste that is both a cost, but also it wastes valuable biomass and natural resources. And as we know, ultimately, we need to come to a circular economy and evaluate those resources. As we've heard from Mrs. Argentati, the pastazzo is an example where we could take a byproduct or waste product and turn it and bring it back into the system, and the idea was to use it to produce energy. The Coca-Cola Foundation, which is a separate foundation which is funded entirely by the Coca-Cola company, is there to support community projects worldwide. And it is a fantastic opportunity for us as a business, but also for our partners to put seed funding to try new things, to try innovation. And that project was particularly to try to find a way to pilot and put a feasibility study on how to produce energy and biogas, in particular from citrus fruit. I think, Mrs. Argentati, you know much better than I what the achievements were, but certainly it will ultimately, if such a system would come to scale, reduce the the disposal costs, so would have economic benefits. It would have environmental benefits because, of course, it would produce renewable energy and at the same time reduce waste, which has a significant CO2 carbon reduction. But also it has a social element, of course, because new jobs will be created in the local value chain. So all in all, a good outcome, and now the question is on scale. Some people would ask probably, and that's why I want to come to the context of why Coca-Cola is interested in that. Why would Coca-Cola invest and engage on agriculture? And the reason is very simple. If we look at the portfolio, and this is just a small picture of our portfolio globally, if you really look into the products and the beverages we put on the market, a lot of them contain agricultural materials across the board. In fact, some people say Coca-Cola is a marketing company, but the actual fact is that half of our procurement spend every year is spent on agricultural ingredients. So you could say we're an agriculture company as well. So if you look at it across the board, we have, of course, sweetness as part of our commodities that come in, juices, flavors, dairy, coffee, tea, and packaging. Because packaging, increasingly, we're trying to make from renewable materials. So again, agriculture comes into the supply chain. And this is the reason, the importance and the scale of our use of agricultural products, that we have made a commitment that by 2020 we will source all our priority commodities sustainably, and that is according to procurement standards that I talk very briefly about, where we don't have time for that. But what are these priority commodities? These are sweeteners, and that includes, of course, sugars and natural sweeteners from different sources. These are fruit, and we are one of the largest industrial fruit juice buyers worldwide, and that includes, of course, citrus fruits, but also mango, apple, and grape. Many others, but what we said, we're going to focus for the moment on 80%, an 80-20 rule, 80% of volume and supply. So the other tail end, and strawberries, for example, would include that as well, are not on that list, but they're certainly part of the plan. And finally, there's a whole load of other ingredients that belong to these top priority commodities. We're also a very large buyer of tea, coffee, we're using pulp and paper for packaging, and we have minor quantities of soy and palm oil. So looking at the commodities and looking at it globally, this is our aim, sustainable sourcing by 2020. Now many people ask what that means. On one side, we have produced sustainable agriculture guiding principles, where we say, here's a whole long list of best practices, of good sustainable practices on social issues, on environmental side, and on economic best practice for how to run and successfully manage a farm, that we believe are top-notch standard right now. These are our own standards that we communicate to suppliers. But equally, we accept and promote other certifications that are already used in the market if they are equivalent to what we expect. And there's a number of existing standards that we would accept that we know farmers are already using, and we believe that is, of course, helping farmers to avoid duplication and additional work. But where are we going with sustainable orange growing under that? So what I think I'm saying, and I would like to leave you with, is by and large, as a global company, we need to think about scale, and so transforming our supply chain is about pushing certain standards and guidelines into the supply chain globally. And so usually we don't get very much involved on farm level, except in certain circumstances. In Italy, the Sicilian project is one of them, and we would be interested to continue engaging there. Another example of what we've been doing, which I think is quite interesting maybe for you to hear about, is that we said we also source locally in Spain for Fanta in Spain. And we've been working with farmers there to really get a baseline analysis of their growing practices and the environmental impacts on soil erosion, on CO2 emissions, on water, which is very important in Spain, of course, and other aspects. We've then done an assessment with them on how well they are faring with these current practices against international guidelines, sustainability standards. And we have found a very good level of performance, but we have also found some gaps. And these gaps we've put into individual guidelines for each farmer, and then a workshop to help them build capacity to understand what they can do better and how they can improve their growing practices. I think that is a very positive example of what can be done, and the farmers have had very positive and given us very positive feedback about the impact this had on their growing, but also on their input reduction. And most importantly, and that's why I think this is very relevant for Sicily as well, it is probably what sustainability will be one of the defining market differentiations for local supply, in particular in Europe, is where if you have not organic is a certain kind, but for conventional farming to show and communicate into the supply chain, which ends at companies like ours, that these oranges and citrus is grown sustainably, is going to be a market differentiator. So I want to leave you with that as a last thought. Thank you very much.
Che viene dall'Olanda e che parlerà appunto degli effetti della concimazione sulla qualità della fragola.
So now, Lieutenant Philip is going to talk about the effects.
I will talk English. There are some factors that are affecting strawberry fruit quality.
Sono alcuni effetti.
So much linked to the topics I've heard before about anti-cancer components, but there is also ellagic acid in strawberries, as you all know. Hasn't been talked about. I didn't know this was the topic, but I think just as blueberries and raspberries and strawberries, this health component is in high concentrations in strawberries. Fruit quality, what we mean by fruit quality is more fruit shape, fruit firmness, shelf life, color and taste. It's influenced by variety, so the genetics, but also mainly the climatic conditions. That means day length, light intensity, CO2 temperature and humidity. Also the soil type and the availability of nutrients and the nutrients that we will give to the strawberry plants. I think we have achieved in the last 10-15 years a balanced nutrient schedule for strawberries. Because in the past and still in a lot of countries they over-fertilize. They have no idea sometimes. If I see figures of 1,000 kilograms for artichokes and 500 kilograms, I am artishocked. It's immense. So I think we went down to 80 kilograms of nitrogen for strawberry production, a hectare, in Holland and Belgium and Germany, while in Mediterranean countries still they use around 350 kilograms of nitrate, which is I think not so good for the environment, and also it has a cancer effect, all the nitrates that can be taken up by especially vegetables, not so much by strawberries. Yeah, strawberry fruits on average 95% water, 5% dry matter. And there you see that the nitrate of the nitrogen represents a quite high amount in the dry matter, but also the potassium and a rather low calcium level. What is the value of strawberry fruits? Mainly vitamin C, also that ellagic acid, and it's also relatively high in sugars. The sugars can be influenced by the fertilization. So there the bricks or the total dry matter can be increased with 0.5 up to 1.2%. And also with potassium-calcium ratios, we can affect the pH of the fruit, or the juice or the fruit juice. So that can be lowered with 3 to 4 units only by the right fertilization. Effect of nutrition on fruit set and fruit shape is mainly nitrogen, calcium, boron, zinc, and iron. Fruit firmness, the same elements, but also potassium and then the salts as chloride and sulfur and sodium. The fruit color, nitrogen has a big effect, the EC, potassium-calcium ratio, and also silicon. Fruit taste, the same elements, and mainly the salts or the EC level. We do see if we give too low concentrations of fertilizers, so that means a low conductivity, we get softer fruits, cracking of fruits, not a good shelf life, a lack of color, more fruit rot, lower bricks, no taste, and so on. So it's a matter of balance. On the other hand, if you give too high ECs, we get a better taste, we get smaller berries, we get a better shelf life, but also we get lower yields. So it's a matter of balancing the EC or the conductivity that we give. It's the same effect of sodium in general, mainly natrium or sodium. That could be also sulfates or chlorides. They all have the same effects of an EC. So lower fruit number, lower fruit size, smaller fruit, and better tasting berries. And that is sometimes why you see in Sicily, if you have water with high sodium or high EC, or it's the same in Spain, usually they have good tasting strawberries. In addition, you have also a high light intensity, so that adds up and give a better fruit quality or a better shelf life or a better taste. Irrigation, and there we see that plays also an important part. Very regular irrigation or irregular. And if you give irregular irrigation, we get cracked fruits, seedy fruits. It's like bursting of the skin. When you go skiing one day and the following day you're in the sauna, then your skin expands and it shrinks and you get these kinds of cracks. Overwatering, too much water, not enough nutrition, we get water-soaked berries. What you give, you get. If you give a lot of water, you get berries with a lot of water. That is a story. Nitrogen can have bad effects during flower differentiation. If you give a high nitrate at the start, when the flowers are starting to differentiate, you actually stimulate the achene number, and you get these grooved, rich fruit and green tips. Here also the effect of nitrate or nitrogen on the fruit shape. And there you can see that with low nitrogen we get nice, conical, perfectly shaped fruit. The higher the nitrate or the nitron is, the more rich fruit we get with a groove, and finally can even split open because of too much nitrogen. Too high nitrogen rates during fruiting can also result in softer fruit with a higher acidity, short shelf life, and less color. And here you see an example of too low nitrogen with pale, smaller fruit, orange fruit with a red calyx, and also a lack of acidity, a high sugar, but a lack of acidity. So it's all a matter of getting a balance in the nutrition. Is the same for our nutrition, our diet, I think. Potassium, that is known, and that is for a lot of crops, vegetables, that potassium adds to the fruit quality, the color, the bricks, the acidity, the taste, the color in general. So that's a very important element. When we have a lack of potassium, we get softer fruit with a lower sugar content and acidity. Calcium, low calcium levels can also cause misshaped cat-faced berries and burning of pistils and flowers. High calcium during fruiting usually results in a slower ripening and a better firmness and shelf life, but also a lower acidity and a lower taste, while low calcium usually increases the acidity. Here you see trials you did also 10, 15 years ago with different rates of calcium and potassium, and you see a difference in glossiness, in seediness of the berries, just only by changing the potassium-calcium ratio. Albinism is a physiological disorder we see often all over Europe. It can appear from Scotland all the way to Trentino or even in Huelva, doesn't really matter. So these are really mottled pink colored soft berries with an acid taste, a spongy texture, and the reason is actually climatical conditions which are not favorable. So very warm, very humid, over irrigation, but also low intensity, strong vegetative growth, high humidity, low night temperatures, and then in addition to that, the wrong nutrition and unbalanced potassium-calcium ratio. We see varietal differences. We've also discovered that silicon that is available in the well water, very often when it exceeds a certain concentration, 0.35 millimoles, it also stimulates this problem. Boron is important for fruit set. So these are pictures of a lack of boron during flowering. And on the other hand, an overdose of boron will cause abortion of flowers and results in smaller berries. Zinc has about the same result. A zinc deficiency will also, during flowering and fruit set, will also cause misshaped fruits. So these elements, and in addition iron, are all very important during fruit set and pollination. So lack of these elements will always result in small berries, pale berries, and misshaped berries. So we actually came to a recommended balanced nutrient solution. And here are the concentrations, and that is implemented for substrate culture, but is also implemented, that balance is also implemented for soil culture, and to achieve actually, by nutrition, a perfect berry quality. So, thank you for your attention.
Grazie a tutti. Io prima di tutto vorrei anche e soprattutto ringraziare la nostra interprete, che so che
our interpreters who have to leave. Thank you for your kindness, because in spite of the commitment that all the speakers have put in keeping their time, of course, 2 hours were not many. I don't know if there will be time for a debate. I would just like to say a few things to conclude, because I believe that from all the speeches have shown the intervention have given the importance of this sector, which is a sector which is very important, especially in some sectors. And this is a sector which deserves a lot of attention for its biodiversity, which is built through an old history which these cultures have in our highlands. So this is a diversity, and at the end of this workshop there will be an event where you can taste our products
possiamo anche usare pienamente questo termine perché sicuramente sono importanti.
So all these topics are very important. We have also experienced the commitment by the research and by the different companies which are an encouragement for our work, and we must thank them for this, even because some of these companies support the activity of research. So if I can conclude very quickly this meeting, if anyone wants to add anything, I would like to remind you the importance to establish a network between companies, a network with research structure, and a network with okay, we have to go.
Ma che naturalmente attraverso questa sinergia delle forze, che non sono tantissime a fronte dello scenario dei problemi che si apre, spero che si possa fare in futuro qualcosa appunto per questo settore che è un'eccellenza siciliana. Grazie. Arrivederci.